Good morning, folks. We are recording this. The purpose of this microtransit training, we've done a number of microtransit trainings. Randy and his team from Southeastern Vermont Transit and the Mover have provided trainings at the town of Brattleboro offices in partnership with ECDC, the Refugee Resettlement folks, and Ian's here from there. We've done some work at the Multicultural Center on Bird Street. We also make microtransit training a part of people's orientation when they arrive as new Americans through the refugee program. And just do a certain amount of outreach to different agencies and employers. So I am Jen Stromston. I am from the Regional Development Corporation, which is Brattleboro Development Credit Corporation. We are lucky to have this microtransit program, which provides evening rides. It's through an amazing partnership with the Mover and Randy and his team. And that really evolved through, I want to give thanks to our funders, which includes towns in this region, but also the Boston Federal Reserve, which has funded a multi-year project to help build systems that would support immigration, new Americans, and working people. And I also want to give thanks to the Northern Borders Regional Commission, which provided the seed funding for this effort through WARC, which is a program through really the DOL ETA, the federal government. So we're the RDC. We often support businesses. People know us as the Industrial Corporation, but we also do workforce programs. How we started with this microtransit idea was we paid attention to our neighbors to the north that were doing workforce-focused programs. And they were experimenting with microtransit as a way to sort of solve that challenge of people getting to and from services and work and plugging gaps in the fixed route transit system. Then we did some research, right? We reached out to employers and looked at how many jobs either ended or began during that time period in the evening when there wasn't fixed route transit. And we got some real numbers. We got a sense of not only the number of hundreds of jobs in Brattleboro, but also a lot of openings on those jobs. And what we have found in our experience is that for many people, second shift work is amazing when they arrive as a new American. They can go to English classes in the morning or attend other trainings. And often the second or third shifts, often better wages and wage premiums. So this really was the basis for designing this program. And Randy, I'm going to turn it over to Randy, who's going to tell you about how microtransit works. For us, we see this as one of the many tools to solve the labor shortage and make sure that more people can access opportunities and jobs and training more easily, especially given the affordability challenge in this region of housing. Housing plus transportation costs are often in excess really of wages that are accessible to entry-level workers and lower skilled workers. And so this for us is a really, really big opportunity for folks to get where they need to go without having to maintain, one or multiple vehicles in a household. Given that Brattleboro is home to half of the region's carless households, we think this really expands opportunities for people and for your labor force options. So Randy, turning it over to you.
Thank you, Jen. I'm assuming everybody can see that okay? Okay, great. Thank you again. I'm Randy Schoonmaker from Southeast Vermont Transit, also known as the Mover. And we're talking today about microtransit for employers. Just a brief history about the Mover. We started as the DVTA in 1996, serving the Deerfield Valley. In 2015, we merged with Connecticut River Transit, which was also known as the Current. And we became in 2015 Southeast Vermont Transit, also still known as the Mover. We're a private 501c3. Our company has 25 fixed routes and 22 demand response routes. We've been fare free from day one in the DVTA side, and we became fare free just before the pandemic in 2017 across the board. We have 85 staff in 2 different locations, 66 vehicles, about a $9 million operating budget. We serve 34 towns in all of Windham and in southern Windsor counties. We also serve 4 New Hampshire towns, and last year we did just under 500,000 rides. Vermont has 7 different movers. transportation companies throughout the state. You can see our region in the lower right of this diagram being in the yellow. We provide the third largest amount of rides in the state behind Burlington and Rutland. There's different types of Vermont public transit service. Before we get into microtransit, I just wanted to give you a quick background of the other services that are available. Everybody's familiar with fixed or deviated fixed routes. That's the buses that go from stop to stop on a set schedule. There's also demand response. In our region and in our state, there's three programs: Olders and Disabled for people 60 and over or people who are disabled. Medicaid transportation for lower income people going to non-emergency medical transportation appointments. And also ADA paratransit, which operates in Brattleboro. Medicaid, Recovery and Job Access is a fairly new program that's to help people coming out of addiction back into the workforce, either through training or an interview process or the first few weeks of their job. There are also routes that are privately paid. We have several of those. And some of our rides are delivered by volunteers who are reimbursed 67 cents a mile for their efforts to help us. They're not employees. We have 23 really hardcore volunteers, but up to a little over 40 volunteers who work for us throughout the year. Many of these programs, as you see, are rider qualifications based. So outside of the fixed route, really, and the private pay routes, you really have to be within a certain class of people to receive public transit service, which leaves a lot of people unserved unless they're close to a fixed route. And just because you don't see a bus going by doesn't mean your town doesn't have public transportation. So many times, Christine and I will go to a meeting and we'll say, geez, we don't have any public transit in Newfane. Yes, you do. You have lots of public transit. You just don't see it. Either they're volunteer cars or they're the vans that are in and out taking people to medical appointments. Brattleboro, just to focus on that for a minute, is a very, very active public transit community. We have the red, white, and blue fixed route lines, which you're probably aware of. The red line goes from downtown to West Brattleboro and down as far as the Guilford Country Store. The white line goes from just above CNS down into downtown. And the blue line goes from downtown to Hinsdale and also does a loop through Winston Prouty and the BMC. And you can see the ridership from last year, the red, white, and blue lines doing about 115,000 rides. That's up substantially even before the pandemic. There's a bus connecting Bellows Falls and Brattleboro, Wilmington and Brattleboro. The Olders and Disabled program that I mentioned. Medicaid, we have a tremendous volume of Medicaid clients who live in the motels up on Putney Road and also throughout Brattleboro. The ADA rides I mentioned, for a total of 163,000 rides. For the population of Brattleboro, that's a very high number, well over the average. So Brattleboro's got it going, at least from 7 in the morning until 5:15 at night. We run a similar schedule on Saturday, and there's no service on Sunday. We get funding from several different sources. Federal funds is about half of our total funding. Those funds require a 10 to 50% match, depending on what function we use those funds for. The state of Vermont, through the Vermont Agency of Transportation, gives us 23% of our funding. There's no local match needed there, and we can use this money to match the federal funds. And then local funds is the balance of our funding. We get this from many different sources. As you can see, sponsorships, towns, ski resorts, fundraising, all different types of things. This is just some of our partners here listed. And then it's important to remember that non-federal local match funds are absolutely critical. It's one thing to have all these funds here. It's another thing to be able to draw them down. And there's some years we can draw them all down and some years we can't. So it's important to build up the local funding as much as possible. the design of US public transit is that it's kind of odd, but I can see how it developed. First of all, Vermont spends the highest per cap on public transit than any other rural state. And I think it's like 5th or 6th in the country for rural and urban states. So it's really phenomenal how much Vermont pays. Vermont invests twice as much money as New Hampshire. They have twice the population and half the spending that Vermont does. Public transit was built in silos to serve specific riders. And we went through those a minute ago: elderly or disabled or economically challenged, addiction. And the access to a fixed route is defined by the feds as walking distance of 3/4 of a mile or less to go from your house or business to a fixed route. 3/4 of a mile in a hilly area like Brattleboro and in Vermont is a long walk. There's always a funding gap for riders who don't fit in a silo above. That's really the big hole in public transit in the United States. And that's why microtransit is emerging. It serves everybody. There's no qualifications to ride this program. It's on demand, so it's there whenever you want to use it. It's not on a schedule. It can be used for any purpose. It doesn't have to be a medical trip. It can be for anything. I want to go visit grandma, or I want to go have a beer someplace. Sure, hop on. Now, pilot programs will tell us if microtransit really is the answer to moving the masses on a much larger scale. Not sure, really. It would be extremely expensive, but there are pockets where it can be useful, and that's where the pilot programs come in. So the definition of microtransit is really Uber with a van. It's that simple. There's different types of microtransit. There's day service and night service. It can serve single or multiple towns or areas. You can use a single vehicle or multiple vehicles. It's open to the public, or in some cities, it's only for ADA riders or other limitations, but those are in much larger urban areas and not in Vermont. First mile, last mile means it'll pick you up at your house and it will take you to a bus or a train station, or to meet another form of public transit someplace else. Hub and spoke, it can be the spoke to a transportation system hub. Many microtransit systems do require a fare. In Vermont, they're all free. You can book in advance, or you can book on demand, or you can book both. Again, in big cities, you've got to make a reservation in advance. And all microtransit is driven by smartphone technology. Rides can be booked online or by calling the office, but somewhere along the line, there's a software program unique to microtransit. And by the way, please interrupt if anytime you have questions. Brattleboro's microtransit planning is pretty dynamic. As Jen mentioned a little while ago, there's about 500 households in Brattleboro that don't have cars. Many have one car, but 2 people who need one. There's no public transit after 5:15 p.m. There's nothing open to second and third shift openings. There wasn't until now. There's no rides for people not living near a fixed route. And it was really, we had a pretty inadequate public transportation system for the new Americans that are arriving. A lot of them first stop was at SIT, and we didn't really have much service there. So we kind of jilted things around a little bit and have some service. Now we'll be redoing the Brattleboro schedule, and we'll include them on regular loops when we do. So the micro-move was developed as one solution. BDCC looked at local jobs and job openings on second and third shift, and when people don't have access to the mover's daytime fixed route service. I won't go through all the details here, but this system took 2 years to plan and fund. Jen ran a van program for the new Americans. She started her own system, which very few people that I know of do. So that was awesome to get things going. But They did the large employer survey. We did rider surveys. The response was pretty overwhelmingly in favor of the program. We initially requested funding from VTrans. It was denied. Jen submitted her application to Northern Borders, and we also submitted an application to the Town of Brattleboro Human Services Program. So the BDCC grant was awarded, Brattleboro's grant was awarded within a couple of months of each other this past winter. We began service on April 15th with enough funding for 9 months. We told everybody we may run out of money. We're not sure if we're going to sustain it. We put in a second application for sustainable funding, and on May 10th, it was awarded. And so we have a pilot now for 3 years, in addition to the 10 months that BDCC funded. So it was roughly, very roughly, about a year of studies, about a year of funding applications, and then we were finally ready to start up with funding. Funding sources typically can range from federal CMAQ and New Start funding to statewide, the MTI program. The towns have supported it, local organizations, state agencies, human service partners in some regions provide funding for microtransit. There's fundraising, and then the businesses who directly benefit from the service, we are hoping will start to kick in funding in other projects. Brattleboro's funding mix is, as you can see, this is for a period of a little over 14 months. The Northern Borders grant was absolutely critical and crucial to getting it going. BDC also supplied funding for our software program. The town's kicking in $24,000. And the federal and state grant amounts are very small. This is only to get us through the last 4 months of this fiscal year, and that funding will dramatically increase in fiscal 26. We have great partners. We would not have this system without BDCC. That their funding also helped us secure the Town of Brattleboro grant. When we went back to VTrans the second time and showed them all the money that we had raised, VTrans said they had no choice. They had to fund us long-term. So I thought that was pretty good. Good play, Jen. Initial investment provided the essential skin in the game to secure sustainable long-term funding. Absolutely critical. Everybody's got great ideas in this state for new routes, but until you can come up with a local match, that really is the kicker that makes something happen. So local match and advocacy are just absolutely key. So what is our microtransit program? We run Monday to Friday, 5 p.m. to 11:30 p.m., anywhere within the Town of Brattleboro limits. We can pick you up within 30 minutes of booking. Sometimes we can do it in 15 or 5 minutes. Sometimes it's 35 or 40, but the target amount of time is 30 minutes. You do need a reservation. You can't hail the vehicle down as it goes by. Every vehicle is lift equipped. It has a bike rack. It's open to everybody, and it is free. Absolutely free. Here's a nice quote from one of our riders, Ren, who uses it almost every day to get back and forth to work. She's a great artist too, as you can see. But this is typical of some of the letters and some of the input we get from riders who suddenly have this freedom to travel in the evenings. How to reserve a ride. Reservations are required at least 30 minutes prior to arrival. You can make it for one trip, or you can make it for recurring trips. So you can set up your whole next 3 weeks of when you need to go someplace. If you have a job and you want to go be picked up at the same time in the same place and you dropped off, you can do it all in one step. 3 ways to make a reservation. You can call our office Monday through Friday and book it through one of our staff. You can do it online at this address. You can make your own reservation. You'll be asked to sign up. You'll provide some key information at the first time you log on, and then after that, you can go right to the screen and enter your ride requests. And the last one is there's a Q Ride app that you can download from the Apple Store or Google Play Store, that so you can book rides from your cell phone. Software is really key to this program, as I mentioned earlier. The software uses algorithms to book rides. So we have right now a 14-passenger bus that's doing the service. Sometimes there's one person on it, sometimes there's 6 or 7. Sometimes we may go out of our way to go to wherever you're going by a block or two, but that's all part of the algorithms that say, no, there's somebody waiting on that other block. Let's pick them up on the way. Riders can be booked when the office is closed. We're tracking all different types of data from this to see how we can fine tune it and make it more responsive. It's a key planning tool for us. I mentioned the name of the product is Q-Ride. And really, the software needs to be easy to use and easy to train on. Admittedly, it's a little funky on the cell side of things to sign up your first go through. We do have training for that. We have been doing training for that. There's a step-by-step process on our website how to do it. But again, once you're in and set up, it's very, very simple. To date, we've had, as you can see by day of the week, Wednesdays through Friday are our 3 busiest days. Starts off a little bit slower Monday to Tuesday, but it's all pretty much the same every day. The trip purposes, 48% employment. That was 51% about 3 weeks ago. The personal use here is kind of, to me, it's a little bit too general. I'd like to be able to narrow that down. That's something we have to work with the software vendors. But people are using it for shopping and medical appointments, and for other purposes. Our rides per week, you can see there's a couple of dips here. This is Memorial Day when we only operated 4 days, and this is 4th of July when we only operated 4 days that midweek. But we had a record week last week of 122 rides. So we're generally trending upward, and we expect that just to continue to rise. We did a study from April 15th to the end of June about super users or heavy users. And we found that we wanted to focus this on just on rides to work. We've got 5 riders that go to Omega Drive businesses either 3 to 5 days a week. And you can see the other businesses here that the numbers of employees that are riding pretty much every night to go to work. And that's wonderful. We've gotten quotes from them saying, I wouldn't have this job without this service, or I'm able to go to a job that I can make a little bit more money at night because of this service. And I narrowed down the new Americans that are using the service, 3 of which live at SIT still on a temporary basis. But these people, I did a study on rides by hour. And you can see that there's a rush from 10 to 11 when second shift usually gets out. And it's fairly consistent between 5 and 8 p.m. So as Jen mentioned, we're happy to do training and help on this service and in all of our services for HR people who are online today. Maybe transportation isn't your job, but I think if you understand how it works, I think it will serve your business. It will help your business. You can work with us or BDCC to help you understand fixed route schedules, of which there's a sample here. This can be confusing. Nobody in transit has figured out how to make this understandable. You can go left to right or top to bottom, and it's still confusing. But anyways, we can help you interpret those and figure out how they may help your employees. And of course, microtransit training, we're happy to do that. We've done a bunch. We'll show up at any time, any place, with anybody that you would like on your site or online, and we'd be happy to show you how that works. But Jen feels, and so do we, that you can expand who can work for you. You can reduce absenteeism if removing the transportation equation from that, and hopefully giving them every reason to be able to get back and forth to work. This is a picture of one of our new Americans working at Omega. How can you get involved with us? Promote this to your staff. We can help you with the graphics, the writings, the photos. We mentioned the training. Happy to do whatever we can to help you with that. You can use this Microtransit program as a recruiting tool for second shift applicants or to get third to work. We have a couple of riders who use this vehicle to go to work at 11 o'clock, and then at 6 o'clock, they get the first, 6:30, they get the first bus going back. So it can be used for third shift as well. The mover will do, as I mentioned, on-site training. You might want to consider a sponsorship inside the bus or a donation. And we encourage you, if you're going to go out for dinner one night or something, to take a ride and try it. I think you'll find it's a very enlightening experience. There are obviously business and community benefits to transportation. Not only can it get you to work, but it provides equity and inclusion for everybody. Very, very important that we serve everybody without any qualifications. We can take customers to retail locations, the hospital too. This is a big program for the new Americans, we think. But public transit can improve the quality of life for everybody. It really can. It can make a difference. There's so much of it out there that people don't see. There's a lot to it. A lot of it's confusing as we walk through this, but it really is a great asset to a small community. And Brattleboro certainly is using the systems that we have. So that's all I have for Microtransit. Are there any questions?
I do just want to pipe in and say, one of the things that's been really exciting in the last couple of months is we ran a class, a healthcare careers class, and being able to run classes at night and know that people can get home to wherever, even though it's after hours, because many are people who don't have cars, don't have driver's licenses. And so there's also in the works evening classes for English language. And I think this just, kind of makes the point about how all of the providers in the community that are helping people get ahead, learn skills, learn English, are sort of, this helps everyone make sure that there's accessibility to those programs that help people be economically mobile and improve their lives. But the last thing I want to say is that the secret sauce is like Randy and his staff. Like, if you can look at the app and be kind of flustered by that, and that's fine. Like, it's not immediately, there are great instructions, but honestly, call their office, and everybody is incredible and incredibly helpful. And then, get on that bus, or, like, help someone take that bus at night and meet the drivers. Like, Randy's drivers are incredible. It's just so safe and friendly and customer oriented. And I think that's really one of the points we want to get across, that there's a little bit of a learning curve to figure out how to use it and get people signed up for it. And then it's just this incredibly lovely, lovely, friendly, safe, door-to-door, customer-centered experience. So that's the people at Southeastern Vermont Transit.
And again, Jen, thank you for getting this program going. This is a great partnership we have, and I know another community that's trying to copy it, and they'll be hard pressed to meet your effectiveness and your energy. But thank you very much for all that you've helped us with.
Love public transit. It's the planner in me.
There you go.
If anyone has questions, please raise your hand or put them in the chat. We will make this video available. We'll put it on YouTube because that also makes it easier for folks to access captioning and translation. Yes, please put your mother-in-law on it. Yes. So, yes, it really is very low steps. It's a very accessible vehicle, really helpful, staff. So whatever. Great. Yeah. And I hope people will follow up and share this information, encourage people to use it. Oh yeah, Megan Grove. Ashna, you have the power to unmute people, I think, right?
Hi, good morning. Sorry, camera is off this morning. But I'm sure you had said it. Can you remind me the boundaries of where this service goes and like how to pretty quickly and easily communicate that to folks?
It is the town of Brattleboro boundaries. So it's any map of Brattleboro. I'll just see if I can share this again. It is the town of Brattleboro's boundaries, if that's of any help. Any GPS will tell you you've crossed into Dummerston or Guilford or something, but it's the town of Brattleboro itself.
Okay,
West Brattleboro, Brattleboro, yes.
great. Thank you.
And really, again, I mean, that comes out of the math, is basically that half of the carless households in the county are in Brattleboro. A more than half of the jobs are in Brattleboro, and the lion's share of like the affordable housing is in Brattleboro, and sort of all of the refugee housing. And so for now, that was sort of biggest bang for the buck. And like Randy said, it's a pilot. It's kind of demonstrating the sort of utility of having this type of flexible technology, like algorithm-driven, very efficient rides. And hopefully the sky's the limit in terms of thinking about how this can be applied in a broader way over time.
Randy, we have a question in the chat about posters that they can get to put up and how they can get them.
So I would need a phone call from your company or an email to say, we'd like to do something, and we'll design one. I don't have one in the can, but we have a brochure that we have available that we can drop off at your business. And if you wanted to customize a poster or whatever, we can certainly draft one for you to edit and produce one that way. I'll put my phone number and email in the chat.
Well, if folks have follow-up questions, please don't be afraid to reach out to Randy, to us. The idea is just to make sure that people understand this option is available to them. And I think there are wonderful ways in which people solve for transportation, and that's giving each other rides and figuring out how to get driver's licenses and cars. But, really, this is for people, especially who are, operating where they're making hard choices about whether to, buy fuel oil this winter or keep their car running, or for people who have any mobility challenges. This is just this incredibly freeing thing. And it means, and we hope, reducing the sort of the pressure on folks and giving people more access to anything from town meetings, right? Being able to participate and be civically engaged, cultural, they can go to gallery walk and know that they can make it home, right? Teenagers can go bowling with their friends on a weeknight. I mean, that is really, what I hope to see over time is an evolution of the type of users, where people are really just using it to enrich their lives in many, many ways. And I think that as people discover it and how wonderful it is, that's going to happen. So please help spread the word. Thank you so much for being here today. And we'll post this and we'll send a link around to everyone so you have access to that video.
Thank you, Jen.
Thank you, everyone.